Hello, I'm J.R. Smith. When I heard of the recent passing of Mr. James Bass, I began to think over all of the recent conversations that I've had with him. Now, through interactions with him at Smith County High School, DTC3, MTSU, and Smith County Insider, I've had the chance to hear some of his amazing stories about all of his extraordinary life. And I'd like to share some of those stories with you today. Now, I broke those stories up into three different areas, and those three areas are what he talked about the most when me and him had the chance to spend time together. The first area that we're going to look at is how he spoke of his country and his life during World War II.
In the military, I was a technical sergeant, having attained that rank through going through certain schools and being in line with what was at that time was the old Army, and you got your rank based upon your achievement. And I went to a technical school and learned the International Morse Code, among other things, and learned how to fire a machine gun and a few things like that. And as a bomber crew member, I was one of 9 members of the crew, and it was our duty to bomb the German emplacements. We provided the service to help the ground crews when they needed the bombing crews to help them, but more so we bombed the communications, the transportation, the industrial complexes. And believe me, they had some large complexes. I knew it was over on May the 7th, which was May the 8th was the day that the armistice was declared. But I knew it was over on May the 7th. I had gone down. We had to continue to keep our code and our communication skill up, and had to go to ground school. When you didn't fly, you had to go to ground school. I had gone down to do some ground schooling, and they told me in the communications that morning, forget it, the war is going to be over. So I went back home. I had about 30 days at home before I had to report. Part of that time was just relaxing and trying to get yourself back in the groove. I didn't do a lot. I didn't go a lot of places. Most of my friends that I knew in high school and college and around home, they were gone. They were in the Army too, and I don't think any of my schoolmates were back home at the same time I was. I won the Air Medal with 3 clusters or 2 clusters, I guess. I got the European Theater of Operation Battle Stars. I was engaged in what they considered to be 3 battles over there, 3 major offensive over there. I got the Good Conduct Medal by some shape, form, or fashion. I got the Victory Medal, and I got a medal that the French gave for helping liberate France from their enemy. Every home in America, in some shape, form, or fashion, was affected some way by the war. And we joined together and we won the war. And we were not the greatest generation. We were just a generation that was called on to provide for the future and to take care of an enemy that was going to conquer us. And we did it.
The second area Mr. Bass spent a lot of time talking about was his community. He was a graduate of Gordonsville High School, but he spent a lot of time on both sides of the river, loving both the Tigers and the Owls.
Believe it or not, I remember the first day I went to school. I remember going to school. I remember my mother taking me. I remember the classroom we were in. And I remember a little bit of pandemonium And of course, at that time, the schools were crowded, as you would imagine. So we were in the period there of trying to get organized. But I do remember that first day of school. One of the better games, not only of the Carthage-Gordonsville rivalry, but of almost any game was that I've ever seen, was the 1934 game between Carthage and Gordonsville. Now, back then, they played the game on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and in '34, both schools had good teams. Carthage had Shad Bryant as their star running back. Gordonsville had Turney Ford, and they both were good ball players. Turney went on to play at Vanderbilt, and Shad Bryant went on to play at Clemson. At that year, every year back then, just before Thanksgiving, it was what we called hog killing weather. And on that particular day, it was a gloomy, dark, cold day. And the games were played up on the hill here in Carthage, where the parking lot of the high school is now, and always attracted a large crowd. There were no stands to speak of back then for bleachers for people to sit in, so most people crowded down on the sidelines. Gordonsville won that game. Excuse me. It was pretty much a defensive struggle, and going into the final minutes of the fourth quarter, it was tied 6-6. Gordonsville started this drive that began to bog down on about the Carthage 14-yard line. Turney Ford was the running back and the nucleus of the passing attack, the kicking attack, whatever. Gordonsville had an end, or another player named Glenn Foster. Glenn, according to current standards, was small, but for those standards back then, he was a pretty good sized player. Glenn was about 6'6", maybe 6'1" tall. He weighed about 190, 185, 90 pounds. Had big hands, and he was a good ball player. Matter of fact, he was also a good baseball player. But it's the fourth quarter with less than a minute to play, and Gordonsville has got the ball and needs to do something. So Glenn broke loose there in the end zone and got free of his defender. Turney Ford threw the pass to him, and of course he had to throw it high in order to dodge the Russian lineman. Glenn caught that ball, and Gordonsville won the game 12-6. My blood runs blue, but no, my children went to Carthage, but my wife and I and all of my brothers and all of my family went to Gordonsville. Now I have a nephew on the Carthage team, and I have a niece who is a cheerleader at Gordonsville. So I'll have a hard time this year. To set the record straight, I will probably sit on the Carthage side because my son has tickets to the game.
It was also very evident in our interviews that Mr. Bass loved his family. His parents, his wife, his children, his grandchildren, and his extended family as well.
I was born in New Middleton in 1921. And at the time I was born, New Middleton was no different from all of the other communities in Smith County. It was a small center of business, of people coming to town to shop, especially on Friday afternoon and Saturday. It was almost a self-contained town. You could get almost anything that you would need, at least on a daily basis, there in one of the stores, or at least by the next day, the merchant could have it. I might say this on behalf of my raising there in New Middleton. When we were there, I never remember the front door being locked. When we left the house, I don't remember the front door. I might say the side door. We went in and out what we call the side door. I never remember that door being locked, even though we may be gone for wherever. And of course, we never were gone over one day at a time. So we had a very good neighborhood. I've done what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back and be a sole practitioner, and I've been pretty much, except for my son David, but I've done what I wanted to do, and I've worked hard, and I haven't retired. Most people retire after so many years, but I didn't care about retiring. I just wanted to come back and go to the office. I had good parents. I had a good wife for 62 years, and my children, my family, my grandchildren. Smith County's always been a good place to live, and I've had a good life. I had 62 years with Irma. We did not become a twosome until after the war, and we did not marry as soon as a lot of people who went to war did. I had to go back to school. I had to get an education. I wanted an education. My parents wanted me to have an education. So it took us a long time to get through school before I could talk about the future. But it's been a good life, and I've enjoyed it.
Mr. Bass, we thank you for your service to your community and to your country. You will certainly be missed. For Smith County Insider, I'm J.R. Smith.